In fashion, a 7-day delay in month 3 becomes probably a 7-figure problem in month 9. I always say, because we're dealing with different geographic zones, you are in the head office, we are working in the development team, and you have received an information from the factory on Friday afternoon. The factory sent you the email and you got it, and you respond immediately to the factory before you left the office. By the time they come in on Friday, they already have the information. They will work on Friday and Saturday, and by Saturday lunchtime, they can dispatch you the sample by DHL. You have it in your office by Monday and Tuesday. That saved you literally Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saved you literally 3 days in fitting. So again, here we go, talking about this. So every function has a timeline, but the bigger challenge in most organizations, nobody actually maps properly the dependencies. So design team have their deadlines, sourcing have theirs, etc. But if everyone keeps working in silos without talking to each other and understanding what's the purpose of the go-to-market calendar and what are we trying to achieve, the ultimate result is never going to happen, because I'm not picking on any particular environment or any particular department here. The design team might have 6 weeks to design the line, but if they don't take 6 weeks and they take 10 weeks, that's 4 weeks coming from someone else's job. Someone will have to cover those 4 weeks. At least as a company, we say we're happy to extend the deadline. Then again, you're going against the purpose of why you're working as a company. So, like you and I, we did in every episode, I think it's worth putting a definition. And probably if you ask 10 people that what is a definition of the go-to-market calendar, you will probably get 10 different definitions. There is nothing wrong and there is nothing right. But for me personally, given my experience, I'd like to use this definition that actually I'm sharing with a lot of organization, and when I'm working with them to implement a go-to-market calendar. So I like to call it is the tool that puts discipline in your entire organization. It tells every function you have on the business what needs to happen, by when, and who also owns it. So it's clear roles and responsibility in the same way. So, and again, when a calendar works, the business moves as one. When it doesn't, everyone works on their own clock. And at the end of the day, we wonder why nothing lands on time. And, when we're talking about definition, I always want to make sure that if you're talking to a kid who's 10 years old, he can understand exactly what the definition.
Marketing is all about storytelling. Dad, when we first started this business, what did you say to me?
I said, yes, we do a podcast.
Why?
Because I want to tell our story.
Why?
Because I know the story builds a legacy.
Builds a legacy. And that is exactly what we do here at ETS Rubasha Media. We market your story on social media so you could build a legacy for those who come after you, to build your business and your personal brand.
Yeah, follow us on our platform. Go on our website, etsrubashamedia.com.
This is about legacy, and it is about showing up on social media every single day, because if you don't show up, your competition will.
But my question is, where does it go wrong? Where does the disorganization happen? How does the defense be disorganized with the midfield to the side? Where does it go wrong so people are on different calendars and not on the right milestone? How does that happen?
So first of all, let's start with the fact, and I'll get back to it, how the go-to-market calendar is being established. What is the process for it? And also more important, do we stick to the deadline? Do we stick to the agreement? And by the way, Sajira, I'm using the word deadline, which means that's actually ultimately the last day you're supposed to do your job. Imagine if you do it early, if you have the possibility and the chance to do it early. Like if you are the midfield, as an example, Sajira, and I'm in the back as a defense team, talking again about soccer, I got the ball and I release it quickly to you. What does this help you to do? You're already avoiding the pressure from your opponent. And you can, you have the time to control the ball, you have the time to look right, left, etc., and then think about the next movement. If I hold the ball as a defender for 2 more seconds, I'm literally making your life a little bit miserable in a way, because I already give the opponent the time to get very close to you and then stop you from the next movement. So think about it the same way in a company. If I do my job a little bit early, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing a favor or helping the next team or the next department who's going to use my information or my job to be also having a lot more time, because we're in the fashion business and a lot of things might happen actually that is not anticipated, and if you have a little bit of a buffer, it's always very good. But we will get a very clear answer to your question when we go through the slides.
Yeah.
So again, the go-to-market calendar is not a planning tool. It's an operating system for your business. And what I mean by this, it should be also certain flexibility within the calendar, because things, again, are never sealed in stone. And we're talking about a fashion business. Things might change during the season. We couldn't get specific fabric. We couldn't get something that actually was required by the design team. So it's not a planning tool. We're not producing against the calendar, but it's an operating system that helps the business moving towards the same direction and also having exact timeline that everyone is clear. So when you talk about the go-to-market calendar, and I want to spend a few minutes here talking about the sequence of events in terms of the phases of the calendar, Sujira. And by the way, it's a recurrent system, because these 5 phases are actually fully dependent on each other. So the first phase is always start, what we call situation analysis and strategic business plan. That's where all starts. What you get out of it is obviously your strategic business plan, what we are trying to achieve, what is the objective, what is the revenue target, but also you get a situation analysis. And what I mean by situation analysis is what the market is telling you. How do you position yourself versus your competitor? What is the feedback from your consumer versus your product? Because you have to digest all the information so that you can move to the next phase, which is basically come in with the concept brief and a season story, because you learn from the market, what the company want to achieve. Then the role for specifically the merchandising team and the design is to come up with the story of the season. What are the fabric we're going to be using? What is the storytelling from a design perspective? What are the finishing are we using? What are the color palette? How many t-shirts we're going to be having in the line? What was the heroes from last season? Do we still build the line plan on the heroes of last season, or do we look for another hero of the season? So those are all the questions. That's actually the creative vision that is going to come on based on phase 1. Once phase 2 has been clearly identified, then we can move to the phase 3, which is the development cycle. We have to bring the vision and the creative vision to reality. And when we're talking about the development cycle, there is different portions to the development. Obviously, there is the raw material development, but also there is the fit side of it, there is the finishing. Basically, everything that was imagined by the design team has to come to life. So like, for example, the waistcoat you're wearing, Sujira, it's a gray color, is a specific fabric, is a specific pattern, is a specific fit. We have to go through development, probably sample number 1, sample number 2. We have fitting internally, we have fitting with the suppliers, etc. Till we're happy with everything, and we finalize the development cycle. Then obviously with for a few companies that heavily depends on wholesale channel, there is what we call the selling window. If you have your retail stores, it's very simple, because whatever you develop, you can bring it to your retail stores. But if you have wholesale partners, you have to show them the line so that you can get the orders. And that's what becomes phase number 4. That's what we call the selling window. You have to show the line to your customers so that you can get orders. And it could be either through digital information, so you have a line book, you have a catalog, or you could be through physical samples, and you have agents that are actually selling the lines. So at the end of the day, when the selling window is completed, then you gather all the information. That's what we call back to, you remember, previous episode we did about demand and supply planning. So that's the demand planning. We gather all the information. So what is the volume that is coming from wholesale? What is the volume that is coming from our own retail? What is the volume that we believe we're going to be selling in e-commerce? We did the sum up of those numbers, and we're going to go to the production cycle, the logistic, the transport, and bringing in the goods to the basically to the end destination, whether it's wholesale customers, whether it's the shelf or the distribution centers or our retail stores. And again, the cycle starts, because again, once you finish that production and the goods have been sold to customer, You have to do again, go back to phase one. What is the strategy for the next season? What is the market has told us about the season we just delivered, etc., etc., etc. Clear? Any questions?
No, I'm pretty good. Yeah.
And the last comment I put on the page here, each phase has gates, miss one gate, and the cascade begins. So imagine you don't do your proper job on the development cycle. And let's say your development cycle has 12 weeks, and you probably take 18 weeks to finalize your development. Those additional 6 weeks has to come from someone or from somewhere. So is either we're gonna squeeze the production, or we're gonna squeeze the selling window, or we're gonna deliver into the market. So building the calendar, back to your point. So Jira, building the calendar is not a job of one person. While we always talk about one person in the company who's in charge of the go-to-market calendar, but really is input from different organizations, both internal and external. And basically, I always say that the calendar is really as strong as the input that is built. So the information that is coming from both external and internal people has to be valuable information, but also we should avoid, and that's what happened in most of organizations, a lot of people build buffer. So they build, when they're given dates, they build safety and they build buffer. So end up being a huge calendar. Then again, when you put it into the benchmark, it doesn't serve the purpose, because then you're outside the cycle of what other companies are doing for similar industry you're working in. So if you're the fashion, you end up you talking, for example, 18 months for development, where other companies are taking only 12 months, just for the sake of the conversation. So you have obviously internal stakeholders. So that's the design and product development, sourcing. So every function will give all the milestones, but also how much time they think they need to do it. And also you're getting from external stakeholder, which is obviously your key suppliers and manufacturing, because you need to understand what is your lead time from a manufacturing perspective. What is the lead time for your raw material? What is the lead time for your transport? What is the lead time that it takes for customs clearance, etc., etc.? How much time do you need to do if you need to do testing? If there is a new product completely and you want to do wear tests, for example, how much time do we need to take for the wear test, etc. So all this information are gathered. Then you start compiling the calendar. But to be able to put a calendar in place, you have also to have someone who's going to do the job. But there are certain, I hate to use the word qualification, but there are certain element to the person who's going to be doing the job of the calendar. So first of all, it has to be cross-functional knowledge, because if sourcing is giving you certain dates, you should be able to have, I'm not saying you're the subject matter expert, but you should have certain knowledge on sourcing, because that's your role to challenge the information given to you. But also you should be someone who is be able to regularly input meetings with every function, because every function has to give you information. But also once the calendar is built, there is also a review on a weekly basis to understand whether we have any red flag from something that potentially has been missed as a milestone or deadline. So how the go-to-market calendar operates, and that's hopefully would answer the question you asked. So typically the best companies, they have someone who reports to the CEO or the general manager. The go-to-market calendar doesn't sit within specific department, because then there is a kind of a conflict of interest. It has to be a cross-functional authority, and the calendar owner has a mandate to build to make sure that every function is actually accountable. So in a way, we're not talking about a small caliber in the company, but it has to be a certain empowerment from the organization to this person who is going to be in charge of the calendar. So once the calendar is built, there is a weekly review. And again, it's not about finger pointing here. It's about just reviewing to understand which department, which function have missed potentially something in the calendar. Is about anticipating red flags. Again, sometimes the deadline can be missed, Sujira, but doesn't have any impact to the business. But certain deadlines, unfortunately, has an impact to the business. That's the one that has to be flagged so that everyone understands and there is early warning. But also more important is the go-to-market person serves as a record, because if we don't have someone like this function in the organization, what would happen is when we end up with delay, whether it is in production or sales or whatever it is, we start finger pointing and we forgot why we end up in this situation. And the last one is also about being able to create their visibility within the company by, result being published on a weekly basis, and every month stores green, amber, and red to show the one that actually has impact to the business versus the one that have less impact, visible to all the stakeholders. And also, there is no surprise. I mean, if it's red, everyone knows before the meeting, not after. Clear?
So also what I'm getting from it is as well, like if something does go wrong, we can understand exactly who's accountable because we have the operating system. Everything is clear and in place. We know, okay, why has it gone wrong? What the time is, what effect does that have? Everything's very organized.
100%, Sujira. That's absolutely summarize it. It's exactly the same way like when we talked about the sales and operation meeting. It's not a meeting. I mean, the presence is mandatory, and you're not talking about anyone attending those meetings. The go-to-market calendar meeting as well is very important, and we need to have, like here the slide is showing, we need to have an owner. And typically for me, in the best-in-class organization, the owner is actually the head of the department. So if you're talking about the brand, it's typically the brand director or the GM for the brand. If you're talking about supply chain functions, is the head of supply chain. If you're talking about the marketing, we're talking about the CMO. If you're talking about finance, we're talking about the CFO. And those people, that's why they own the go-to-market calendar, and it's in their job and their responsibility to ensure that actually their team understand clearly what's the impact so it doesn't happen. So it's a kind also, while we take it probably as a discipline, but also there is a learning out of it. Because if you have always a recurrent pattern is always the same department that is being late with the milestones, there is definitely an area of improvement. And I would say that's something that probably the CEO and you can see it in all phases. The CEO and the chief operating officer are always attending those meetings because you have to empower the people for the decision making. I.e., if something is late and we have to take an air freight cost, because that was the only way to save the season. We have to have the CEO and we have to have the CFO, potentially the chief operating officer or the head of supply chain, because these are the one who's going to approve the air freight and make it happen. Here we're going to go probably to a concrete example. In fashion, a 7-day delay in month 3 becomes probably a 7-figure problem in month 9.
Oh, no.
And again, probably it talks a lot more to people when you're putting numbers behind it. So typically when I was working with organizations, bigger organizations, so Jira, I always say imagine, because we're dealing with different geographic zones. Imagine you are in the head office and you're working in the development team and you have received an information from the factory on Friday afternoon. And I'm not saying in a moment do over time. I'm just giving an example here for the sake of the conversation. And the factory basically is behind you from a time perspective. Let's say you're in Australia and Friday, for whatever reason, you decided to leave the office by 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you didn't respond to their factory. In the majority of around the world, the majority of the factories, they also work even on Saturday morning. So that was a crucial information to give to the factory so that they complete the sample to be shipped to you. That information didn't happen because you didn't respond to the email and you left on Friday. The factory worked on Saturday morning, didn't have the information. What happened? You only get it on Monday. The factory will finish the sample and dispatch it by Tuesday, Wednesday. Given the DHL, if you're lucky, you will get it by Friday. If you're not lucky, you'll get it by Monday, next Monday. So we are talking about a full week that was wasted because a simple decision was made and we didn't give the information. Imagine with me the opposite. The factory sent you the email and you got it and you respond immediately to the factory before you left the office. By the time they're coming on Friday, they already have the information. What they will do, they will work on Friday and Saturday, and by Saturday lunchtime, they can dispatch you the sample by DHL. You have it in your office by Monday and Tuesday, worst case scenario. That saved you literally Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, saved you literally 3 days in fitting. So imagine, that's what I'm saying, 7 days, and I'm going to put here an example so that you understand what is month 3. Month 3 start production, and we pushed the delay by 2 weeks. What happened is a cascading effect. While we missed the X factory shipment date because the production was pushed by 2 weeks. The logistic, again, the same thing. We lost the selling doors because, especially in fashion, you have 6 weeks selling window. So again, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with the leftovers on your markdowns that you have to sell to discount, which at the end of the season, if you don't manage to sell them, you're going to write them off and you will be sitting on your P&L.
So
any questions?
Quickly.
Yeah,
quickly. A lot of companies or a lot of people today lack a little bit of what you said there, where it's like the speed of the employees to say, why are we waiting 2-3 days to reply to an email and we comply right away? This out of 10, so many people are slow. So is it the company? Is it the DNA of the company? Is it the people who are working? What is it that has that, where someone in your company maybe, like makes that error, which is a huge error of like, delaying to reply, instead of, no, in this company we do things with speed. You look at all the best companies, Amazon, speed. One thing that helped me when I came into business was my speed. Was people were like, wow, sure, you did it so quickly. So where does because we work with billion-dollar companies who are in the retail industry with you, Rachid. So like, what do you notice? Is it the DNA? Where's the lack? And then how can companies be able to work on things like that? Because to avoid...
It's a very good question. Absolutely a very good question, Sujira, there. I think there is a lot of factors. I don't think there is only one. And I only say I don't think there is a silver bullet. One of them is obviously the culture of the company. The second one is also the country itself. I worked in different regions around the world, and I can tell you specifically when you're in the island environment, probably the sense of urgency is less. Again, do we have a discipline within the organization without having someone to tell you that you have to do this? I mean, if you have been assigned to a function and you're working in the function, you know what you do and exactly what would be the impact if you don't do something. So are you clear on this? And also sometimes also what is not clear in the company is who owns what. Again, brings us to that responsibility. Who's responsible? Who's accountable? Who's in charge? Who should be consulted and who should be informed? Because that's determine who's ultimately, if I'm the owner, that ultimately determines also the sense of urgency. But also again, the purpose of the calendar is also continuous improvement. What do we do actually with all those elements that we're getting, like every system, by the way, not only the go-to-market calendar, but the inventory, the planning, the quality. What is the improvement process that we have in place once the season is done, or before even the season is done, and we're trying to build a calendar for the next season? What are the learning that we have out of the previous season? What is our success rate? How can we do things better? And I tell you some evolutions on the way the mentality has changed from brands, and you're living in Australia and you can compare Australia with different other parts of the world. Typically on the development process, a lot of people are still working, a lot of fashion brands are still working the same old ways of doing things. And let me tell you, Sujira, the game has changed. And if you are doing and you're still playing the same old way, you're actually losing. In a sense, I'm going to send the tech pack to the factory. They will work the sample, they will send it back to whatever part of the world the head office is. We're going to be doing the fit session in the head office, and we're going to give the comment back to the factory, etc., etc. When you start thinking about the time that all this process takes, and if you have in your calendar and you build just for 2 single protos to evaluate, and you're counting the HL lead time, that's literally 6 days, working days, just purely for shipping the samples from the factory to your head office. Plus the time that it takes before you do your first session, who's traveling, who's available, are the design team available, is product team development is available, you might receive the samples, sits in someone's office before they do the measurements, etc. So there is a lot of waste of time and energy. Some organizations that actually want to be agile and but want to be very quick and speed to the market, what they've said is, when you look to the entire costs that the product development generates, how about we take a flight and we spend 2 weeks with the factory and we do everything with the factory, physically there. We pick the fabrics we need, we pick the trims we need. If there is anything we need to discuss from an embroidery point of view, we'll discuss it. If there is any challenge for the factory, we're there working as a team. We can help each other fixing the issue, etc., etc. And we put an objective for ourselves saying, before we come back from the factory, we should be signing everything that we need to do. That's literally 2 weeks. So you're shortening your development cycle from 6 weeks to 2 weeks. And what it does is reinforce that collaboration between yourself as a brand and your supplier. So it's again a partnership.
Wow. Great. Amazing breakdown.
So and the beauty I think of the calendar, because it's is a tool, is actually the calendar doesn't care about your excuse. I mean, we can bring every excuse we want in the world. The calendar only knows deadlines and consequences. And it's up to your CEO or to your head of the department to identify what are the consequences and how can we fix them as an organization. And again, it's not about punishing, it's about continuous improvement. What do we take as a learning from the season that happened, from the calendar, etc.? How can we build it? And I can tell you, I worked with an organization, Sujira, that tells you that the aim of the process of the go-to-market calendar is not always sticking to the same calendar every year, but the idea is on a year to year is trying to reduce the calendar so that we can get a very agile and very quick in delivering the goods into the market. The best example is what Zara is doing from a fashion and a quick speed to market. You can be, if you want really to play in the speed to market, you cannot be having the same way of doing things. Is how can you think outside the box and get the organization? How can we save time? How can we do things better? You know, few examples that appears in the last couple of years right now is, you know, instead of bringing the garment to the head office and doing the fitting, you provide your measurement to the factory, and the factory creates a mannequin based on the measurement for your ideal size for fitting, and they already, when the garment is ready or the sample is ready, they put it in the mannequin. They have 3D dimension. They can share with you. You can already, so it is live. You're saving a lot of time. So there's a lot of things that happened in the way people start thinking about the go-to-market calendar so that they can save time. And the companies that actually, unfortunately, are not in that space of improving their lead time are having difficulties, because by the time they deliver something, there's already someone else who already deliver colors or, you know, beat them in the season, etc., etc. And that's the reality of the fashion market we're living in. And you know, the consumer side of it, they want to what perspective, but the consumer want things and they want it yesterday. Today is even late.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's bring us to the end of the session today. I just want to briefly talk a little bit about our next episode, which is, you know, we're going to focus again as a part of, you know, kind of a sequence, Sujira, because through the whole episode, we covered a few different aspects. And I think we're getting to the level where, imagine now, you know, you fix your sourcing, and we covered it last time. That could be your blind spot. We talked about the planning and the inventory. You're gambling. Most of the companies, unfortunately, are gambling. They are not planning. And now that we talked about all those three, the calendar, the inventory, the demand, and the supply and the supplier side of it, now we're bringing the goods to the warehouse. So we have to cover that part of the storage and in distribution network, because, you know, sometimes without knowing, your warehouse is bleeding money and you don't even know it. So we will be covering in the next episode around the subject of warehouse optimization. I would recommend to the people to follow myself and obviously your company, Rubasha Media, through LinkedIn, but also follow Infinity Prime. As you mentioned, we're going live in LinkedIn and YouTube and Spotify. And I'm hoping that if we manage to catch the attention of leaders with at least one element of all those episodes, you and I actually will done our job. We have already left a legacy.
Powerful, Rashid. And for those of you guys who would like to book Rashid as a keynote speaker, feel free to get in touch and we'll be able to connect you with Rashid. And also, you know, we are going through an exciting time as we enter, you know, Q3, Q4. and seeing the array of companies that, you've been working with, we're talking about billions of dollars in revenue in the retail industry. For a lot of those companies who are coming in and, observing, feel free to get us in touch in time, as Rachid's calendar is quite booked up. So we do need to be able to assess what the issue is and see how Rachid can be able to solve that. For the others, you can just use this information to be able to help what you guys are doing. So Rachid, I want to thank you so much again for your time. Looking forward to the next episode. Your warehouse is bleeding money and you don't even know it. Again, you guys can stream this on Spotify. This has also been up on LinkedIn and it will be post-produced on YouTube and again on Spotify. So keep following in for those of you guys who are listening in. And thank you very much, Rachid. I look forward to yet another episode. And thank you again for building such a powerful legacy.
Thank you so much, Sujira. Pleasure being here.
Right. Thank you.
Hey, what's wrong? Bro, I'm stressed out. I'm running my business. I've got to serve my customers, but I need more customers coming in. I can't keep relying on word of mouth. Why don't you just use ETS Rabasha Media? Who? Well, with AI now, what they do is they go in, get your perfect clients, bring them in front of you. So all I got to do is run my business and he brings me opportunities. Think about it. You speak to 3,000 of your ideal customers, convert 1% of that 3,000, that's 30 people. 30 people in a room with you, can you convert that? Of course I'll close them. I'm good at what I do. I just don't have time to be going and looking for my perfect client. Focus on what you love doing and let them bring you customers. When you win, they win, commission, cha-ching. Sujira Rabasha, huh? Yeah, Sujira Rabasha. Go and Google them, man. Come on, take it to the bank.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're going to love that one.